Et je voudrais encore féliciter ce réseau Educate de la Belgique pour avoir choisi cette problématique d'éducation des réfugiés, mais surtout d'avoir mis la perspective qui est relative à la présence de la majorité des réfugiés dans les pays du Sud.
Mon école est une école qui a accueilli des élèves réfugiés burundais. Je viens ici pour échanger d'expériences.
Et pour moi, c'était vraiment un bel espace qui permet d'interroger la qualité de l'éducation de ces populations réfugiées, mais d'interroger aussi toutes les questions de financement décentralisé pour ces réfugiés, d'interroger toutes les questions d'inclusion des acteurs clés dans ce processus.
Through being able to come today, I had the opportunity to really listen to some great presenters. I really appreciated hearing about the systems that form the foundation of the work that we do, the ways in which different people contribute, whether it's INEE, whether it is the Global Education Cluster, or the contributions that are being made by different donor groups. There were lots of different messages people had to say, but my favourite messages are always the messages of practitioners, people who are working in the field, who are inspired and who have the stories to tell about the people they work with and the children and youth who their work is focused on.
Nous sommes ici parce que nous avons étudié. Alors, il faut donner l'accès à tous les enfants, que ce soit du pays des enfants nationaux et des réfugiés. Demain, il saura nous remplacer.
Quand on parle d'effectivité du droit à l'éducation des populations réfugiées, que ce soit une éducation de qualité. Pas juste qu'on leur donne de l'éducation, mais qu'on leur donne une éducation de qualité, où on développe des compétences, on développe des attitudes et on leur permet bien sûr de s'insérer dans la société et que cette éducation-là s'organise sur la durée. Pour moi, les défis, je disais que c'était aux 3 niveaux. Le défi de l'accès, le défi aussi de la qualité et le défi de la gouvernance du système. Il y a effectivement un problème d'accès. Le primaire a été quand même réglé en partie, mais le préscolaire, il est pratiquement inexistant au niveau des populations réfugiées. Il faut reconnaître aussi qu'au niveau du secondaire, il y a très peu qui y ont accès. Mais surtout le supérieur, c'est à peine 1%.
Education is life-saving. We may not realize that sometimes, but it is. Going to school provides them with some kind of feeling of belonging, some kind of feeling of normality. They will engage with their friends, they will engage with the teacher, and they will forget the daily trauma. We need to make sure that children do engage in learning so that they are not closing the door, that the doors to their future are not closed. Most of the Syrian refugees are hosted in the 5 host countries in the region, in the MENA region. And it is quite a big challenge for those countries, particularly for countries which are relatively small, like Jordan, like Lebanon. And these governments, they have opened their systems to receive the Syrian refugees. They have hosted them in their communities, they have hosted them in their schools, and that is a really an important recognition these countries deserve. And we should be there to support them.
Comment s'assurer que ces différents mécanismes au niveau de la communauté internationale arrivent aussi à se coordonner pour permettre au pays d'avoir accès rapidement à ces ressources sur la durée, mais aussi de façon pertinente.
I take that 2 messages from the Ministry of Education from Uganda. First of all, is hospitality and towards its neighbors, and secondly, that education should be about those 4 pillars: learning to know, learning to do, learning to be, and learning to be living together.
I thought it was also excellent to hear the case study that he provided about the way in which they are trying to bridge the humanitarian and development nexus, and that he was talking about getting the humanitarian and development actors together with donors and making a plan. It was really great to see a country that has had so many refugees that they've been hosting to actually action that and to make something that's real, and for the rest of us to be able to learn from it.
Children are children, and children are not party in this conflict, but they are the ones who are mostly affected by the conflict. It's about the children, it's about their learning, it's about their future. And for that they need to support, and they need support from everybody.
My final key message that I heard today was everybody talking about how what we do and our approach needs to be holistic. So as Jeanette said, it's about children and youth in the end. And we need to make sure that we treat them as a child, and make sure that we treat them as a whole child, that we treat them as a person who needs to be educated, protected, as well as connected with the environment and the learning process.
Comment s'assurer qu'on mette l'apprenant ou l'apprenante au centre du processus d'apprentissage?
L'éducation n'est pas la charge d'une personne, elle n'est pas la charge d'un ministre, elle n'est pas la charge d'un pays ou d'un continent. Toute la population du monde entier est chargée de l'éducation.